Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but first, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, come on, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. You should be using them too. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors, particularly if you're not already using them. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their great products today. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Student athletes loved the videos. Our parents loved the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank our friends at Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, results, rosters, communication. Their athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. I'm telling you, and it works. If you go to snapraise.com, you can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We want to thank our friends at Hometown Ticketing. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, the Hometown team is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. We'd like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to showcase your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check them out today. We want to say thank you to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get started, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We want to thank our good friends at Gipper. You know, your students are on social media, so are a lot of their parents. And if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com to get started. That's it, Gipper.com. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At my school, we use surveys for just about everything: kids, coaches, teachers, parents, and the information that would come back was almost always over the top positive, but it also connected us to those squeaky wheels, whether it was a student athlete or a parent, and it allowed us to see their concerns and address them before they turned into big concerns. But that 98% support was really a valuable tool, particularly when you're speaking to a frustrated parent or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going all the way out to the Pacific Northwest today, and we're going to be visiting with Stephanie Splater. Stephanie has a tremendous background in athletics. She's going to share that with you later. But she is the executive director of athletics and after school activities for the Spokane School District. Obviously, that's in Spokane, Washington. Stephanie, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. It's a busy time for ADs. We're recording this on November 5th, so you've already voted by that time. But
Yep.
winter sports are just around the corner. Those coaches are getting ready to start practices, so let's go and jump right in. Stephanie, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Stephanie Splater origin story?
Well, I was born the morning after a football game because my dad was a football coach, a high school football coach. So my mom took a couple hours off, had me on a Saturday morning, and back on Sunday to watch some film with my dad, and then there launched me into life of athletics. So I always talk about that because my parents didn't even know that I was coming at that point, but we had to get past that great football game on a Friday night. So that was a little bit of my path starting out. And then I grew up, just really hanging out with my dad. I was on the sidelines a lot. He made sure I was immediately the ball girl when I got to high school. And then throughout, I would say high school times, he really instilled in me that being a coach was one of the most impactful things I could do with my life. And so through that process, I was a pretty fast track athlete and a good volleyball and basketball player. Definitely was a cheerleader, so I was trying to be involved in a lot of things. And after high school, went on to college to run at our local community college here in Spokane and tore my hamstring second day. And so I became a coach. And I always look back at that, whereas it could have been awful. I got to be a coach at 19 years old with my dad and learn how to really navigate the systems, and coached at my old high school for a couple years, and then forged my own path a few years after that, and got kind of recruited over to our rival school. And so I became the coach there and eventually the head track coach. I'm someone who didn't know that people didn't have summers off, that we didn't go to football camp and track meets in Pennsylvania like I did all the time. I just thought everyone did this. And so this is part of who I am. I'm proud to be the daughter of a great Hall of Fame coach, and at the same time, really have created some things that are uniquely me. And I like to do things that are a little bit different. So I don't always have a traditional path, but committed to kids, committed to great experiences, and just so appreciative of the life I've had in athletics and activities.
Oh wow, I'm looking forward to diving into that career. I'm going to go back to say your junior high, high school years. You mentioned you did all the sports. You were good at a lot
Yep.
of things. I ask this question quite frequently, but um, was there any I guess pressure or conversation from some of your coaches? Stephanie, you shouldn't be playing basketball. You should run track year round, or vice versa. Was there a tug of war, or was the club experience something that you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in probably between eighth and ninth grade, so junior high to high school, I had to make a big decision about club volleyball. I was really involved in club volleyball for 3, 4 years, and they said if you're going to be on the high school team, you got to stay on the club team. Well, I knew that I couldn't play club during track season at that point, just in the early 90s. It wasn't the way that it worked out. And so I made the decision. I remember making it and feeling really confident about it, but it was tough. So I was giving up something I really loved. found out later that I could go back to coaching, and coaching volleyball is pretty much like playing it. By nature of the sport, you have to play to coach it. So that was a hard one. And there was a point in time too later on where I had to decide, am I going to be a varsity basketball player and not a cheerleader, and then kind of readjust my track goals? Well, I was pretty laser focused on being a track athlete. And so I love those experiences where you're at a crossroads or you have a decision to make. And there's something that compels you to do what feels best and what you're going to excel in. So I took the path of being really serious about track at some point, but played all the sports probably until junior year, and really was fortunate. I was coached by my dad as well, and had great coaches around me, but a lot of guidance, but not a lot of pressure other than, if you do this, you have to do this type of things. And so I think that really helped shape me and form my outlook on what's important. And it was a little bit of pressure, but again, in the early 90s, it was different with club. It wasn't, we wanted multi-sport athletes, but then we were really focused on, the school experience as well. So interesting decisions, but I think that's what makes athletics great, is because it helps shape you in those decisions that you're making.
Oh, absolutely. I've got to ask, as a track guy, I was a hurdler and a high
Yeah.
jumper, ran
Oh,
on the
great.
4x4. What were your events?
Well, I was a 100, 200 girl, and anchored those 4x1. We have a 4x2 relay here, which it ended up becoming my specialty as a coach, something I was really excited about. They did rope me into the 4x4 often. I was fortunate that at one point, senior year, I got to run a distance medley. So I ran the 400 part, but my three teammates were state champions in the 8, 16, and 32. So needless to say, I just needed to get the baton around the track and they were going to do the rest. And so we ended up winning a lot that year in the distance medley. But as a sprinter, that was a little different. But no, definitely a sprinter through and through, kind of have that mentality still that I want to be fast, powerful, and get things done. But not sprinting anymore, but really look back at that as a cool experience.
Oh, again, just so many track memories. I love it. Um, you mentioned your dad. You
Yeah.
mentioned, you grew up, as with a dad as a coach. You were
Mhm.
coached by your dad. Um, as you worked with other coaches, whether in junior high or high school or even later, and even now as an AD, is your dad kind of the standard, and you're comparing all other coaches, to, well, what would my dad do, or how would my dad have handled this? And again, these are my words, not yours.
Yeah.
How does that all fit in for you?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. Everyone it has to meet that standard that was my dad. Was a great dad and was a tremendous coach. Was a tremendous person, and that's something that I carry through, be it as an athletic leader or as a coach or as a teacher or a person. That it's just really important to treat people well. And people said that at his funeral when he passed. Years back, they said, he was a great coach. He was intense. He was a Hall of Fame football and track coach, but he was still the person who remembered everybody's name and always made you feel like you belonged. And for him, he raised me to look at the greats. He said that you always want to see the best in everything. And so we became like scholars of coaches. So I, to this day, just watch coaches. My beloved Gonzaga Bulldogs last night played Baylor here in Spokane, and I got to see the Baylor coach, and I was excited to see him because I knew of Coach Drew, and I think he's cool, but I'd never seen him, and so I thought I'm gonna check off another one that Dad said, see the best, see what they do, and so I love that. He said to make sure that you're always watching. And I thought, you know what, Dad, you're the best. You're the one that I want everyone to have the standard for. And so it was a pretty good model. And some absolutely, but I do love interacting with coaches. And I think that in 2024, it's really different than it was when Dad was coaching. But I also think that people are the same and people have the same core values. And those are things that we just need to keep in mind, that the kids need the best experience possible, whether it's high level competitive or it's recreation for elementary. We've got a lot to do with kids, and just keeping them in mind was what Dad taught me for sure.
I love it. Great stuff. We're going to go and take a break for our listeners. Our guest today is Stephanie Splater. She's the executive director for athletics and after school activities for the Spokane, Washington School District. Let's take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. It's probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their great products today. We also want to thank our good friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school.
Jake, it's been cool to see technology evolve, especially platforms like Huddle. I know our coaches really it helps them in many ways, but that's been a whole new horizon for coaches and athletic directors is navigating all the technology. So Huddle's something that we've had for a long time, and so appreciate that they're a sponsor today.
Oh, well, guys, thanks for sharing that. And again, as a football coach, I
Yeah,
always knew about Huddle, but as an
yeah,
AD, I was kind of concerned if our other sports would like it. And I just remember at my last school before I retired, it was just so great to walk in the gym. Here's our volleyball coach. She's got her cell phone out. She's programming the focus camera because she wants to record practice, or the basketball coaches or the soccer coaches doing it. So thanks for
right.
giving that
So
shout out.
cool. Yeah, absolutely.
For our listeners, our guest today is Stephanie Splater, longtime coach in AD. Now she's the executive director of athletics and after school activities in Spokane, Washington. Stephanie, you kind of took us a little bit through your college career, got an early start as coaching.
Mhm.
I think it's important for our listeners to hear about the various journeys that we take. So, what was that like for you post college? What were some of those jobs that led you to your current position at Spokane Public Schools?
I was in 2002. I was working at a baseball park in the summer. I was doing some skybox waitressing at our minor league park, and I was planning to sub. First year out of college, I was going to sub. I was going to be a track coach. I was the sprint coach at Lewis and Clark High School, and I was coaching some cheerleading and club volleyball. And at that point, I thought that I had made it. Well, one night, I went on to Cal Teach and just applied at every cool place I could see in California just to see if something would pop up. And Apple Valley, California responded and said, we are looking for a female PE teacher and we're looking for a volleyball coach, and we'd love for you to come on down and visit. And I thought, we're doing visits? That's interesting. So I had done that in a little bit for college, but I thought this is really interesting. So I looked up Apple Valley. I thought it looked like a wonderful place. I thought this is perfect. This is where I'm going to start my career. So I booked a flight, had my dad come with me because I wanted him to check it out. Well, I had looked at Apple Valley, Minnesota on the early internet that I was looking at. I had thought it was a small school in the Midwest that looked a lot like Washington. And I ended up in the high desert in Southern California in an LA kind of commuter community at a school of 3,000, the Apple Valley Sun Devils. There were a lot of them. And they welcomed me. They rolled out the red carpet and they said, "We want you to be our PE teacher and we want you to coach our varsity volleyball team." Well, at that point, I had coached U12 club volleyball for about 4 or 5 years. That was the extent of my volleyball coaching. Now, I was a pretty good track coach already, and I was really committed to coaching. So I think I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was doing with volleyball. So as it turned out, I had a great assistant. I got to experience Southern California volleyball for a year. Absolutely amazing. call the LA Times for your scores. That's a little different than calling our local paper, and that was really exciting to me. We ended up 6-5 that year, so I thought that was fantastic. Had a girl from my team who was actually born in Spokane, so that was a cool connection. But we had an awesome season. I absolutely loved being a head coach. I loved walking out. I loved building that program, and that whole experience. Ended up coaching ninth grade basketball that year, and then of course track. They had me coaching the jumpers. That wasn't my thing, but loved it. Absolutely had a great season. And then packed my bags and came right back to Spokane where we have trees. And it wasn't quite so hot and quite so windy. And then went on with my career from there. But that was my first experience. But for them to take a chance on me and gave me that head coaching experience at a big school and Southern CIF in California was just awesome. And so I think from there just propelled me into thinking I can do whatever. And then ended up really just falling in love with volleyball coaching. And so did that throughout my early career as well. And always had that through thread of track. So that was my first experience, and it was great. But I also think I'm a Northwest gal, and I always got pulled back to Spokane, Washington. But took that year. Also went to the west side of Washington at one point and taught and coached in Bellevue, and then have been back in Spokane ever since. So that was kind of my early story.
You bring up a great point. And I think this is still true with teachers and coaches, when they come out of college. There are jobs out there. They might not
Yeah,
be at your high school. They might not be in the town that you live, but if you're willing to, take that leap of faith, move across state, or in this case, out of state,
right.
um, there's some great opportunities there. And just because in your case, just because you go to California doesn't mean you're going to be there for the rest of your life. Maybe you will, but in this case, you want to come back to the Northwest. Um, how was there a plan in your mind at that time of, well, I want to, end my career in Spokane in charge of, athletics of the Spokane School District, or was it more maybe stepping stone? I want to go from, my first job to maybe a bigger school or something. Do you remember having a plan back then?
Yeah, my plan was always to be a full-time health teacher. That was always my goal in those days. I loved teaching health, and I wanted to be a high school track coach. I wanted to be a girls track coach. I wanted to build a championship program. My dad and I always talked about program builders, and we had so many cool examples in our state, but really building a program that girls wanted to be a part of. I wanted to win trophies. I wanted to be something that their siblings wanted to be a part of and look up to. So at that point, when I was 25, 26, I really wanted to be a full-time teacher and a track coach. Spokane spring weather, it does you in. So I always say you age a little bit because the wind, the rain, the snow, we had snow. We were shoveling most of the seasons when I was the head track coach at Lewis and Clark, shoveling the track for a week or so. But it that was my path. Um, Turns out, other things come up, other opportunities come up, and sometimes you just need a reminder of what the purpose is. And at some point, I thought I had done what I could do in track. I coached track for 17 years, 5 as a head coach at a big school, and we did win trophies and banners, and we had girls go to college to run track, and I've been invited to weddings and so on. So it's been that whole circle of life that's been so cool as part of that. But at some point, I thought I'm ready to shift, and my impact could be a little bit bigger in a leadership role of adults. And so just moved past that. I happened to get that head coaching job the same month my dad passed away. So I haven't walked this journey with him in person. I definitely have thoughts with him and conversations. But that was an interesting point in time. He had a pretty tough cancer battle. And at the same time, I was, really accomplishing my goals and becoming a head coach. So after a while, after I did that for quite a while, I was definitely called to a different leadership role and the impact of overseeing and using my skills in a different way. But I applied a lot of the same things. Organizing a track team, if you can do that, you can organize a lot of people, I think.
No, absolutely. And as somebody who did that very same thing for many
Mhm.
years, coach track. Um, I was always, as I was talking to track coaches at my school as an AD or hiring track coaches, I always make sure that we had that discussion about, the number of events, the different personalities, the minutia of organization that goes into track,
Oh
unlike
yeah.
any other sport.
Right.
So, very cool. It's great to have a colleague that can talk that
Yes.
track language.
Track bonds are really special.
Yeah. We're going to go and take another break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask Stephanie to share part of that transition from head coach to athletic director, what I like to call coming over to the other side of the desk that is now led her to her present position. So let's take that break, but we are coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd also like to say thanks to our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are over. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We use SnapRaise at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it, our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges, and I don't think I need to say anything more. Whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, the Hometown team is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Go to hometownticketing.com for more information. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus. Now, Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, rosters, results, communication. Their student athlete eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. Once again, you're going to be very glad you did. This is it. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Stephanie, you shared with our listeners your journey as a coach, a championship journey, and you hinted as we were wrapping up that last segment about making that transition to the world of athletic administration. How did that happen? Was that something you had your eye on, a job opened up, or did people reach out to you? Take us on that part of your journey.
Great. Well, at some point, I had gotten a little tired, grown a little tired of the spring weather here, and my dad actually had a year in between his cancer journey of 3 years where he was healthy, awesome, and we just wanted to do something different. We'd coached together for a bit, and we took a year off, which was odd before I became a head coach and so on. But that was really a year of enlightenment and like what there are other things out there other than just coaching. And so I had a really great mentor principal who said, eventually you might want to consider going into school administration. I'd never really thought of that because honestly, I thought I would be a track coach forever. I just thought I was going to do that for my whole life until I couldn't anymore. But she planted that seed, and so the journey went on coaching track after Dad passed. Everything was great, and then at some point, I wasn't teaching at the school where I coached, so I was about 25 minutes away. Teaching elementary PE and commuting over to the high school facility where we practiced. And I just got tired. I was at a point in my life where I felt like I was approaching burnout, but not there yet, and I didn't want to get there. And so we finished that last year super strong. I was really proud of what we had done, what we had built, but knew that if I was going to take it to the next level, I needed to be at the school. Well, as we know, PE jobs don't just pop up all that often. And so I had seen, writing on the wall a little bit there that they loved me being able to run this program and do a great job and not have to give me a teaching job. So I just reevaluated what I was doing and I went and got my administrative credential at that point, and was kind of on the path, oddly, just to try something different to be an elementary principal. And there was a point in time where that didn't feel right. I'm definitely someone who responds to what I'm thinking in my heart and mind, and putting those together, and just evaluating what feels right. And an opportunity came up in our school district to be a curriculum coordinator for fitness and health, oversee secondary athletics, and oversee a new elementary program that we were building. And I thought, well, that sounds like exactly what I want to do. An elementary principal job is awesome, but it's not really for me. I had been an assistant principal. I thought that was cool. So when I took this curriculum coordinator position that had some athletics oversight, I thought this is exactly something that I want to do. My first meeting in that role was a Title IX case about dugouts, softball dugouts, and baseball dugouts not being really of the same caliber. And so I dove right in. My second meeting was about helmet safety. And I thought, this is the greatest job of my life, because these are all things that I care about. These are all things that I can really sink my passion into. And I think I found it. And so that was my unique path again, having been a head coach, having been a PE leader and teacher. And then our district is cool. We have a wonderful superintendent who is very athletics minded and wants to get kids connected to things. And so creating this role that oversaw the curriculum, but also oversaw our athletics programs over the last 6 years has just morphed into being part of our district leadership team and having that lens of athletics and activities. Just really feel fortunate to be a part of it, but also appreciate that there were a lot of people who thought I should be an elementary principal, and that's cool, but it wasn't for me. I need to be able to oversee high school athletics. That's really what my passion is. And so when this position came up, I think they had someone else in mind too. So I fought for it and I went for it. And then transitioning through our ranks of leadership from a coordinator to a director, overseeing the athletic directors, we did some really cool things, shifting our athletic directors to administrators during that time. And then with me as the oversight, and now being part of our district leadership team as an executive director is really important. And so just again, a unique journey. I'm a track coach. I'm not a basketball coach, I'm not a playing time coach. So that's been funny along the way, but I think my passion and enthusiasm for athletics has really been something that continues to help me drive towards doing this role and doing it well.
Yeah. I'm going to take a sidestep here real quick,
Yeah.
but again, track coaches, I think swimming coaches also get this. You mentioned playing time.
Yeah.
It's about performance. The
Yeah. Love
stopwatch,
it.
the tape measure. You do or you don't. There's some team components there on a relay or
Yep.
scoring for the team, but unlike any other sport, your results based. Okay, let's not talk theory. Let's get results done. So I'm sure I know I did. I approached a lot of problems from that perspective.
Absolutely.
Um, Curriculum coordinator. Now that
Yeah.
for me, that conjures up an image that I won't don't want any part of as an athletic director.
Yeah.
How much of that early job was, I guess, on that extreme of curriculum coordinator versus doing things that, let's say, might be more traditional to a director of athletics for a big school?
Well, the cool part is I was the curriculum coordinator for fitness and health. So in Washington, we call it fitness and health, PE and health. And so those 110 people that I work with on that staff, 65 of them are coaches. And so we have a lot of things in common. In our professional development sessions, we brought in proactive coaching. We brought in coach mentors and people to talk to the PE teachers. So I felt like I always got to braid it together. Like it was always something where to me, building a program could be in the gym, on the track, on the field, on the diamond. It doesn't matter. It's building a program and treating kids well. And so I always had that layer. So for me, sure, I had to sit through a lot of like curriculum approvals, and we did a great health adoption for our new materials, and that was awesome. But we hadn't had one in 25 years. So you can imagine health 25 years ago probably wasn't what we were doing now. But it slowly over the years, and I would say COVID really tipped us into that I was fully a full athletics person. because that's all we did was respond to the crisis from an athletics lens. I mean, I was writing online lessons for PE as well, but we were at that time trying to get kids back out to be active and to be together. And so that's really when there was a shift for me from that curriculum piece. But I've definitely feel like we've built a solid foundation of fitness and health here in Spokane. We care a great deal in Washington about health and wellness, and so it was a natural fit. And at the same time, yeah, you're right. There was a lot of there was a lot of meetings and a lot of things, but I love to learn. I love to gather, and I think it only helps everything else I do. And so those early days were cool. I now have leads in that area that oversee those cool things. So glad to be able to fully dedicate to athletics and activities, but it was a good journey. It made sense at the time.
Oh, well, and again, that does make perfect sense. And I love the connection, the coordination, collaboration with health and fitness, and oh, by the way, athletics.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Stephanie, we're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, find out how you do things in your schools, or just add you to their network, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. I would love to connect on LinkedIn. I'm Stephanie Splater on there. I think you can find me no problem. And then love an email. I know I was listening to one of your recent episodes, and I think email is underrated. I love that kind of connection, especially as an introductory to who you are and where you're from. And so my email is Stephanie SP at SpokaneSchools.org, and would love to connect and reach out with anyone.
Well, again, we'll give that information out at the end of the podcast. We'll also put it in the show notes. Stephanie Splater is our guest. We're going to take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we're coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We definitely want to say thanks to our friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all of the different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Make sure you mention the podcast, vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'd like to thank Ohio University and their Masters of Athletic Administration. Go to ohio.edu/info/MAA for more information. Now, I didn't get my master's at Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And it was a great experience. Very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're completing your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. That's ohio.edu/info/MAA. We also want to thank our friends at Gipper. Your students are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're really missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. Mention the podcast, they'll give you a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Once again, we're visiting today with Stephanie Splater, the Executive Director of Athletics and After School Programs for the Spokane Public School District. Stephanie, you and I were talking off camera. You do some really interesting things in your job for your coaches, for your kids, for the people of Spokane. And I'd love if you could share a couple of the things, the ones that stick out really for me. You're also a podcaster. You do a podcast to celebrate some of the things that you do. Um, that's not the only thing I want you to talk about, but what are some of the things that are really, I guess, exciting for you beyond the normal scope of being a district AD?
Right. Well, you mentioned our podcast. So our podcast is SPS Extra, and it is our Spokane Schools podcast that features all things extracurricular. I've had the great pleasure of in our communications department, we have people who have switched over to work for us from the local news. So I've had two podcast hosts that are sports and news broadcasters. So we have a really high production value podcast that we love, really featuring the stories of our athletes and our students participating in activities, and then our community partners. That's something that we take a lot of pride in Spokane Public Schools. We are partners with Hoop Fest, the world's largest 3-on-3 basketball tournament, to run our youth basketball programming. So countywide, 4,000 kids play in this program. And of those kids, about 1,500 are Spokane Schools kids. We share our gym space with them to provide that programming. And we know that those community partnerships are the way to leverage more support and more opportunities for kids. I might have mentioned a little bit earlier that I have a tremendous superintendent. He was a record-setting basketball player and a PE guy early on in his career, and so he understands what's important as far as keeping kids engaged. And we are all in with a district and community-wide initiative to engage in real life. And so what that means is great opportunities for kids to participate in whatever it is they want to. So with those community partnerships and this is something that I feel really proud of, we don't cut in Spokane schools. So we might have 7 C teams at Rogers High School for boys basketball. We had multiple C teams for high school volleyball this year. We are right now fortunate to be able to find great coaches who care and want to work with kids, but we are maxing our gym space. We are maxing our coaches' capacity, and we're all in on opportunities. If you want to do something, you get to. We have 4 city golf courses that we access for high school golf as part of a joint use with our city parks department. And right now, we need more golf opportunities because kids in Spokane want to play golf. So we invested in technology to have simulators at the schools, and netting and full projector setups so that they can perfect their game there, both in the early spring weather that's not so great, like I've mentioned, but also because we have more kids than our golf courses can handle. We're really excited that one of our football teams, Rogers High School, second year in a row in the playoffs after quite a few years of never making it. And they had 160 guys come out for high school football this year. That's amazing. I mean, we always love the 100, the magic 100 number for a varsity program, but 160 is awesome. And they're heading to the state playoffs in just a couple days. So that's really cool. And then wouldn't be okay not to mention a very brave move by our school board last May. Our superintendent, our school board decided that it was the point in time where we would bring on middle school football, middle school tackle football. We've never had it in Spokane. So my dad's great days of coaching in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't really a youth program. There wasn't a school-based program for tackle football. We've had state champions in this town, but they did it without kids playing youth football to a degree of a school program. So this year, we jumped right in, whereas some neighboring districts around us were experiencing budget cuts and making some tough decisions. We decided to bring on tackle football. We had 140 middle school kids turn out in 2 programs. So 2 programs had 140 from some of our lower participating areas of town as well as where we piloted it. And it was just a huge success. We had crowds, big crowds. We played our first game at our new stadium. So the kids played on the turf that first game with band, cheerleaders, dance team, huge community effort. And that's the kind of thing we're trying to do around here is just get kids engaged and involved. We've seen a huge uptick in interest in cheer and dance, which we love to support. A lot of uniforms, we're buying a lot of uniforms and trying to access the best coaches possible. But everything from chess club to climbing club to wellness walks, all the way to high level varsity athletics, we're all in to engage in real life. And that's been a really cool initiative that we've been working on this year. Along with that, you mentioned coaches' professional development. We launched our first all district-wide coaches clinic last summer. We titled it Ignite Your Impact, because that's really what it's about, is that impact that they can have on kids. And so we tested it out. We had 60 people there, which we thought was a success in the middle of the summer in Spokane. And we hope to build on that, have it twice a year, and really form a place that coaches can connect with each other, but also learn and also reflect on what's to come and what has been in the past, and just really excited about what that looks like moving forward. We paired it with a sportsmanship summit for our athletes and our ASB leaders. And it was a cool first start, but we've got a ways to go in building that up to be a part of the Spokane tradition. So lots of cool things happening around here. We're busy, but we care, and we really care about the kids' experience, and we want them to be engaged in real life so that they're great students, and at the same time they're just happy people going off into the world doing great things.
Wow, so many things I want to ask about. I'm going to go and talk about the middle school football. Uh,
Yeah, wow.
I mean, that is so great when sometimes, football, it gets a black eye, particularly at the younger level. No pun intended there,
Yep.
because it is such a great sport when you have the right coaches
Oh,
and administrators leading it. Um, it sounds like it was a great success. Are you going to
yes.
be adding other middle schools? And let me ask you this. Um, in putting that sport together, adding a sport is always, a challenge, but football very much so. Looking back on that year of planning and execution, what's one thing that you found out, hey, we need to do a better job in this area with the middle school football?
Well, we had 4 months to turn it around. So our board approved it in May, and the kids came the day after Labor Day. So we were buying equipment every single day because the registrations kept clicking up and up. And because we don't cut in Spokane, we're not limiting it. We're not limiting the most expensive sport that there is. We had budgeted for 60 kids. We thought that that was probably going to be that sweet spot, 60, 70, between the schools that did it. And we ended up with the 140. So we were sourcing every pair of white football pants in the nation. We were buying from third-party sellers on Amazon at one point. We fortunately got helmets right away, so that was
Right.
awesome. Looking back, I think having a plan that really spoke to the student interest, because we'd gathered the experts' interest, we'd gathered the varsity football coach, we knew what the school board wanted, we knew our initiative to get kids engaged, it fit along with that. We hadn't really surveyed the kids to say, are you going to turn out for tackle football? I mean, I think the idea was, like you said, the hesitation about football, but this community right now is just ready for it. They were all in, kids were signing up at a rapid pace. And so I think getting that student voice should have been something that we considered, because we would have heard the interest sooner and we wouldn't have to be scrambling. I think our first game, so they were feeders for two of our schools, feeder programs for two of our schools. And we had to borrow the varsity uniforms for 4 kids at one of the schools to play in the middle school game. Good news, they matched pretty closely. Nobody noticed. But it was that kind of thing where we didn't quite have enough, but we made it work. Love to do some more coaches' professional development. We had 8 really, really good middle school coaches, 3 former college players here from Eastern Washington University, which was so cool. A former NFL lineman that came out and just said, I want to work with these kids. One of our campus safety officers said, I'll be there to work with kids. And it was just fantastic. Like, it all came together. We tried to mobilize an athletic training program with them, but that was tough because of the time frame. That turnaround was so quick. So instead, we had our Shriners Hospital volunteered their surgeons and physicians, and they were on the sidelines for our middle school experience. And so really there couldn't have been anything better for it to come together. They took some losses. They also won a few games. They didn't have to just play everybody's JV. It wasn't like that. So I think maybe not underestimating the kids' interest and what they can do is something we need to do. We are planning to build on it. We have our 5 comprehensive high schools, so we hope that they all have a feeder program at some point in the near future. That'll be a budget consideration, of course, but the momentum and the excitement and the positivity that was our middle school season this year is unrivaled, and absolutely, without a doubt, we're going to bring on more programs. And now we know how to buy everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, the equipment issue is certainly, one of those things. Boy, we need a plan for this. Great, great stuff. Stephanie, this has been so cool spending some time with you and getting to know you a little bit, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you obviously know your way around the world of athletics, but we're going to take our final break here from Athletic Surveys, who sponsored this segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys. And when we come back, we're going to see what Stephanie Splater puts in her new athletic director toolbox. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. At my school, we use surveys for everything, for students, for coaches, for teachers, and for parents. And the information that would come back on these surveys was almost always over the top positive. But we also heard from parents or student athletes that had concerns. And by getting that voice, it allowed us to address those concerns, which were usually small, before they turned into something big. But having that 98% approval was incredibly valuable information, especially when you're talking with that frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Once again, don't forget to mention the podcast. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Stephanie Splater. She has a tremendous background in athletics as a coach, as an administrator, as a leader. But right now, I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Stephanie, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
I've thought about this in preparation for this podcast, and I was reflecting on when I have had a new athletic director and the things that we shared. And isn't it interesting that it's evolved over time what I share with them? So I would say, as of today, number one for me is they need to be responsive. People need to hear back from you, whether that's on the dreaded red light on your phone, or whether it's an email, or whether it's just a connection that's an appropriate time. People need to hear back from you. So being responsive, I think, is really important. And I think people really value that, especially in an athletic director where you're mobilizing so many things and you've got so many kids involved and so many families. And I think just being responsive is super key. My second one would be always have being a program builder in mind. I've mentioned that, but all things, whether it be a team or your athletics program, is something that needs to be evolving on a daily basis, needs to be something kids want to be a part of. And everything you do, from the most detailed, boring piece of your day to the most exciting play at the end of the day at the stadium, everything is working towards building that great program. We think about our area and some of the schools that historically excel both in the classroom and on the field, and are good citizens. I mean, that's the ideal. And I think we should always be striving for that. And so being a program builder is a through thread that I use with my athletic directors in our meetings, as far as what we need to do. And along with that, connected to it, is don't settle. We're not settling for just people checking the box and taking positions. If you don't find what you need, I had a conversation with an athletic director last night. We're 2 weeks away from the start of basketball, and she's still looking for a JV girls coach. And she said, we did interviews. No one was a fit. And I said, that's okay. We're not panicked yet. Kids aren't coming quite yet. We're on a tough timeline, but let's do some different kind of outreach. So don't settle just because you got a box to fill on the pay sheet and you want to make sure someone's there. We really need to make sure that we're hiring high quality coaches, advisors, and people to work with our kids. So I think at this point, those are my three: being responsive, constantly being a program builder, and not settling for coaches that aren't the best fit for your program. I think that's super important for our athletic directors at this point. we know that we're going to hire great people who have high tech skills these days and are good leaders and motivators. We know that from their resume. We get 50, 60 applicants every time we have an athletic director position. So we feel like we have awesome leaders that we're building. And at this point, it's all about the kids' experience and it's all about connecting with families. And so these three things I think are pretty important for any toolbox.
Oh no, absolutely. We talk about communication being the that overall category for tools and be responsive. I don't know if anyone's ever used those two words to talk about the importance of communication, timely communication with stakeholders. And I love your other two words. Don't settle. It's we always say it's all about the kids. It's for the kids. Well, hey, let's make sure those coaches who are on the front lines, they're the right people. As you
Absolutely.
said earlier, it's the right fit. Stephanie, this has just been so cool. We're definitely going to elevate you to friend of the show
Oh, great.
status. Um, if one of our listeners wanted to find out more how you run your program, and listeners, you have a tremendous resource here, or if they just want to add you to their network, what's the best way that they can connect with Stephanie Splater?
I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. That's something that I've been exploring more and have made some cool connections already. So that's a great area for me. And then, of course, old-fashioned email is always cool. I'm at Stephanie SP at SpokaneSchools.org and would love to connect on either one of those platforms for sure.
Well, Stephanie, thanks again for sharing with our listeners. All the best moving forward this year. Are we going to see you down in Austin for the NADC conference?
I heard you say that on another episode, and so that's definitely got my wheels turning. I'm not sure it'll work this year, but Tampa the following might be my path for sure.
Oh, absolutely. That's my state. We will
I
definitely
love
plan on
Tampa.
connecting in Tampa. Uh, Stephanie, thanks again, and we look forward to the next time.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
For our listeners, we want to say thanks to you and remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings to all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, sharing stories and best practices. So hopefully you'll join us on the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast.